Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be making nutmeg cookie logs, which I think will be a great addition to our cookie tray. They're going to be a great, lightly spiced, soft cookie with a little bit of frosting, and I think they'll be a wonderful addition to your family gathering. So come on, let's cook. Alright, so let's get started. What I have in this bowl is 1 cup or 2 sticks of butter, softened, and then to that we're going to add 3/4 cup granulated sugar, and I'm actually using a 1/2 cup measure, so I'm just eyeballing it at 3/4 cup. And then to that we are also going to add 2 teaspoons vanilla. And that was the noise, I just dropped the cap on the floor, FYI. Alright, and then this recipe also calls for 2 teaspoons rum extract, which unfortunately I don't have. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually found a substitute online where it said substitute 2 teaspoons of water. So I'm going to add that in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to plug in my handy dandy electric mixer. And then before we start mixing it, we're going to add 1 egg, which I've let come to room temperature. Alright, and then we beat it until light and fluffy on medium speed. Alright, now as you can see, it's looking really fluffy. Alright, so to this, we are now going to stir in the flour, which is 3 cups. And I'm also using my 1/2 measure again, so in case you see me put in a lot of flour, I have to do 6. And then also we are going to add 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And again, I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon measure, so don't be worried I'm doubling the recipe by accident, I'm not. Alright, and then we mix this with a spoon versus the mixer because we don't want to overmix the recipe at this point because your cookies will get hard, and you don't just keep working on it until it comes together. And be careful, like I said, not to be too aggressive when you stir, because you really want to more press the cookies rather than do a vigorous stir. Otherwise, you'll make them really tough, and they won't be the soft, tender cookies that all of your guests will assume they're going to be when they bite into it. Hey, the one good thing about baking is it really is a full body workout. Your arms will definitely hurt if you're weak like me in this recipe. Okay, this is looking really good. See, what you want to look for is your mixture will just, if you hold it in your hand, it'll clump together, and that's perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press this down into a ball. And just like that. What we're going to do is we're going to cover it with plastic wrap for 45 minutes because when dough with a high butter intensity is cold, it's much easier to handle. So what you want to do is you want to press the plastic against the dough. So that way there's no air that'll get to it and dry out your cookies. So if you look at it, we got the plastic wrap there on the top, and I'm going to stick it in the fridge for 45 minutes. Welcome back. Our dough has been in the fridge for 45 minutes. And the next step in the recipe is to divide our dough into 12 different sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the dough I'm just going to form it into a small ball about the size of my palm, and I'm just going to stick it on a dinner plate. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I am wearing a dress. I figure if June Cleaver wore a dress when she baked, I can wear one too. Plus, I was so excited to bake when I got home from work today that I have yet to change out of my work clothes. So, little confession there from the chef. Alright, so I actually ended up with 13 balls. My guesstimate was a little off, so I apologize, but you get the point. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we are going to flour our surface, and please make sure that your surface is cleaned. Make sure it's a clean dish rag, otherwise you'll get that nasty, dirty dish rag smell. And also, make sure you don't use a really strong disinfectant. Just use like dish soap, like Dawn or one of those. So after you just want to put a little flour on your surface, not too much. And what you want to do is take each piece of dough and shape it into a long rope. And this dough is actually not going to roll well, as unfortunately as I'd hoped. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to work it a little bit so it'll roll a little better. It needs a little flour. So feel free to add a little flour. You know, it doesn't affect the recipe at all. Flour really doesn't add much flavor. It's more of a stability. So feel free to add flour as you need. That's why it says to do it on a floured surface. So what we are going for is 15 inches long, ½ inch diameter. Now once you get into that, what we do is we take a knife and cut them into 3-inch logs. And again, I'm probably not doing 100% great on my measurements. So, and then what we do is I'm going to pull out my cookie sheet and ungrease cookie sheet and place logs 1 inch apart. And just an FYI, I have my oven right now preheating to 350 degrees. Alright, as you can see, I was able to fit 4 balls on here. And with high butter ratio cookies like these, kind of a shortbread of sorts, you don't have to worry about them expanding much. They're a very dense dough. So the recipe called for 1 inch between them, and this will be plenty sufficient. So I'm going to pop these in for 12 to 15 minutes, or until the edges are lightly golden brown. In the meantime, I'm going to finish the rest of these balls and get another cookie sheet going. I'll see you in a few minutes. Now that I have all the cookie logs formed, I'm going to stick them in the fridge so that they don't get soft while we're waiting for the next batch to come out. Cookies are all cooled and ready to go, so we're ready for the frosting. And what I have in my bowl so far is 3 tablespoons of butter that is softened. And to that, we are going to add 3/4 teaspoon of rum extract. And like I said before, I don't have rum extract, so I measured 3/4 of a teaspoon of water. And what we're going to do is add a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. It's just a really quick little pour. And then we are going to add 2 cups of powdered sugar. And to be honest, anybody who says that cookies don't need frosting are lying to themselves. I have yet to taste a cookie that wasn't better with frosting. And this frosting is really light, and it's more of almost a glaze than a frosting. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab, again, my handy dandy mixer, and we are going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk. And you can use half and half, and that'll be more delicious, but to cut calories, we're going to use skim milk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this, and I'm going to pour in a tablespoon until I get the right consistency, between 2 and 3 tablespoons. And as you can see, it's perfect. It's just barely, it's thick enough that it's not going to be runny, but it's going to go on great on the cookie. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a little bit. All you got to do is give it a little spread. It doesn't have to be horribly fancy. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little stir. And as you can see, there's not much room for frosting on these. So I'm just going to give it a little texture on that. And then what we're going to do is to add a little interest. We're going to give just a little, see so you can see, just a couple shakes on the top to make it really pretty. Now finished frosting all of our amazing cookies, and as you can or cannot tell, this half is sprinkled with nutmeg, and I left this half without for those who want a less intense nutmeg flavor. One additional note that I want to mention is if you're like me making these in advance, what you want to do is stick this whole tray in the refrigerator to harden up the frosting. And then once the frosting is stabilized, what you want to do is line a Tupperware with wax paper and then set a layer of cookies and another layer of wax paper until you reach the top of that Tupperware, and then you put that in the freezer. If it's packed like that, tight and secure, these will not get freezer burn, and pull them out about 15 minutes before you serve them, and they'll be just like they were baked. So bring these to your family gatherings, and it's really a perfect cookie.